this. We have made it to live stream number 50. Can you believe it? 50 Thursday afternoons of the finest monologuing, I think we can all agree. And, you know, for all of these weeks, every time we've talked about what helps you reach more people with your books, how to deal with the inevitable change that afflicts us all, how to level up your expertise. We've gone deep into key topics and we've talked about how to do all of this at the speed and scale that modern publishing needs. But for this 50th episode, I thought we would take a bit more of a bird's eye view. And we're going to go right up and have a look at why people choose to use Consonance in the first place, because I think it will be instructive. I daren't move my slides around too much because I'm doing it in a slightly different way to normal. So I'm going to stay here in a little box and hopefully pressing this button works. Fantastic. So this is a form field on our marketing website. And earlier on in the week, I sat down with a coffee and I downloaded all of the responses that people have put into this over the years. It's about 5-6 years worth of inquiries into Consonance. So it like documents why people think they need a system in the first place. It was so interesting looking at them all in one go, rather than like one at a time when they arrive. And there was lots of variation, and there was lots of interesting stories about people's predicaments and, you know, what they were sort of reaching out for, and like needing Onyx systems and royalties and project management and what have you. But I'm not joking. Every single answer from the last 5 years had one thing in common. Every single prospective client said they were looking for one version of the truth, like that exact phrase, more or less exactly. So I thought, well, interesting. That needs breaking down a bit, because it feels like this is a useful shorthand code, shared kind of universally, capturing a kind of shared point of pain, isn't it? So I thought today we could spend some time thinking about what one version of the truth might be shorthand for, and maybe we'll get to the nub of why Consonance helps as a result. So let's do that slightly hackneyed Socratic questioning thing, of like asking questions of ourselves, diving into what we think these phrases actually mean. So, you know, why do you want one version of the truth? And what I could come up with was so that everyone on the team has a common understanding of key data and dates. So that seems fair enough. But we can go a step further, can't we? What is the benefit of having common data exactly? I came up with, so there's no confusion about what we've agreed and what needs doing. So we've decided that this is going to be a DeMai hardback on Ensabel 90 GSM with a plate section. We've decided it's going to have a blue cover and silver foil blocking. We've decided we're going to publish on January the 12th. We've decided that such and such a proofreader is going to be on the team for this one. We've decided that editorial are going to hand over from editorial to production on the 15th of May, and so on and so on. No reason to be confused or vague about what the current state of affairs is. And, you know, knowing that information is readily available and not buried in emails and whatnot. And when it changes. But at any one point, there is a one version of the truth, where people can go and see what the current status of things is. So is that the end of our questioning? No. Can we ask further? Why do you want to eradicate confusion? Sure, we can, yeah. We don't want confusion so that there's no frustration or embarrassment or friction between teams. And, you know, we can go even further, can't we? Why do we not want frustration and embarrassment? It is so people's energies can be spent in the right direction, on creative publishing, on delivering on promises to authors, and on selling more books. So it's just quite interesting, isn't it, that when you follow your nose, when we say one version of the truth, we actually mean, I want this so I have enough energy to do my job well. And I quite like that, because publishing companies are kind of just just all a collection of individual nice people trying to get through the week, trying to do just enough capitalism so that we can have nice lives and make other people's lives nice too. Making a difference by, you know, putting thoughtful and beautiful and helpful and elegant and deep and careful words from good authors out there into the universe in the hope that we can make it just a little shade better. You know, and if Consonance helps with that, I shall take that as a win. So let's have a look at exactly how Consonance gets you this kind of, I mean, it's modest, isn't it? This happy, modest dream of your one version of the truth. And you know, it is useful really, because if you don't think through what you mean by one version of the truth, then you might not be looking for the right things in a system. And you know, this is a commitment you're making of time and effort, so you want to get it right. And that, I suppose that's the trouble with pithy one-liners, isn't it? The devil in publishing and in life is in the detail, as they say. So you know, every competitor in this space will say that they offer one version of the truth. But, you know, I suppose as fits this post-truth society we find ourselves in, sometimes the truth isn't true, is it? And oh God, we've seen data in systems where, yes, there's one version of it, but it's wrong, and it's not very easily updatable. We've seen this sort of phrase bandied around until it becomes meaningless as a kind of a generic good thing and a worthy goal, but without understanding the means to make it happen, without a huge amount of pain and years-long implementations. And you know, we've seen things like drip feeding costs that I think kind of take advantage of that sort of sunk fund fallacy. You know, we can't stop now. We're 10 months in and we've spent $100,000. Not even exaggerating. You know, we've seen, and you can see it yourself on an online search. There are some user interfaces out there that make even simple organised data look chaotic. So what I'm saying is not all systems are created equal. And if we remember and agree that wanting one version of the truth really means a system that doesn't drain me of my last dregs of energy, then how a system is onboarded and how it's designed for daily use is, I think, is just as important as whether there's accurate data in its database. So let's take a look at Consonance's unique way of delivering this sort of type of one version of the truth that hopefully actually works. And I'm going to try and focus on the stuff that we uniquely do, because it might be helpful if you're currently considering systems, and also if you're a user of Consonance, it will help you understand the tools you already have at your disposal. Because I suspect that most people listening today are tried and tested, folk who we urge every week to listen along to the live stream. So this is kind of for you, but also a bit lofty, given this it's our 50th. So I'm going to break it into 3 stages. We're going to look at onboarding, maintaining the sort of idea that you've got a system, but you're going to carry on publishing books, data is going to keep changing. How do you maintain that? But then we're going to take a glimpse at the payoff, you know, like exploiting the fruits of your labour, the benefits of having gone to all of the bother of putting your data into one system, making real strategic use of it. So that's what we're going to look at. And so first up, let's look at onboarding. And I think there's a dread, there's a sensible dread of onboarding, and it's often the reason why people stay with systems that clearly aren't working for them. In fact, in some of my more paranoid moments, I wonder whether some system vendors make onboarding deliberately hellish so that their clients never want to move again. We find that the easiest bit of onboarding, weirdly, is bibliographic data migration. And to that end, we've built an internal tool set that the team here can use, which means that we can set up a new client account in under a minute and fill it with all of your past bibliographic metadata from an Onyx feed in under 10 minutes. I mean, that's how long this takes. The bit that really takes the time tends to be the stuff that's nothing to do with systems, like understanding why your processes that have kind of built up over time have come to be, and they're what you're used to, but is it what you want? And things like giving it long enough for everyone on the team to come to the genuine happy acceptance that yes, change is unsettling, but we've decided and we've understood that the pros outweigh the cons. So when we're onboarding, we always start with bibliographic data. Consonance is a vast system, vast and comprehensive, and not every client uses every feature, certainly not at the start. So, but all of the features like royalties and rights and contracts and permissions and production, they all reference your main bibliographic list. So it does seem like a sensible place to start. What we pride ourselves on as well is making sure that every feature is available by default for every user. So just making sure that there's no technical or financial impediment to fully exploiting your one version of the truth when the time is right for you. So we get the bibliographic data from your legacy system, or if that's not available, from one of your existing book trade partners who has it in the Onyx format, like, Core Source is quite widely used by a lot of onboarding publishers. Like recently, Consonance got set up as a new channel from the client's Ingram account, and then Onyx flowed into our own FTP location, and then we pick it up and slurp it into the system. And like I say, we're talking about 10 minutes, not 10 days or weeks or whatever. But then, that's the first go. Sometimes data needs extensive remediation, which, we obviously do programmatically as much as possible. Sometimes when the client sees their existing data in their new Consonance account, seeing it in a cleaner interface kind of reveals the problems. So then we can work together, write some code to remediate the data, re-import the data and run our cleaning script over the top of it. And then we keep doing that. We keep looping, re-importing, correcting any data in that programmatic sense, so that we don't just sort of go in and correct data. We write code that will correct the data, which means we can keep running that code. So we can do a lot with terrible data rather than telling prospective clients to go away and fix it up on their own. And if this process of importing, noticing problems and re-importing takes up a few weeks, we can keep importing new feeds from the old system, running these scripts over and over so that the client doesn't have to maintain two systems at once. And so you've got a sandbox account to familiarise and train the team. And all of this is kind of pre-commitment as well. So it's a good audit process to go through anyway. Speaking of Ingram, and not to pick on them because this is a widespread situation, I thought I'd take a tiny illustration from their Onyx management docs, which go a long way towards showing that Onyx, the Onyx XML standard, clue in the name, it's very far from standard. Honestly, no two companies that we've ever worked with have implemented it the same. And that is super annoying and daft, but it's a problem that is a true problem, and so we have built solutions for it. So this example, which is a bit tiny, but it shows that Ingram want to see the product form description tag in their Onyx parser, and they make it sound optional in the docs, but it's not in practice. So when we receive Onyx from Ingram for this onboarding process, we'll strip that tag out because no other recipient wants to see print PDF in that field. It's an Ingram specific hack of the Onyx standard. And then later, when we send Onyx back out to Ingram, we add it back in again programmatically. And we do about 1,000 sorts of accommodations like this. We are never the long pole in the tent. We've got very good at accommodating other people's systems because it's just easier for us to change and do the work than wait for other people to change, which of course never happens. So after bibliographic data is in, the next onboarding stage kind of depends on the client's main worry. If royalties are a bin fire, then we'll focus on that. If it's workflow and project management and roles and responsibilities, then we'll focus on that. So whatever sort of data it is, there's various kind of importer tools that you can use yourself through the interface, or again, we tend to do one-offs where data needs fixing first or is in a rather peculiar format. And And, you know, if you're a long-time user thinking something like, wait, we've just bought that new imprint and I was just dreading importing all of their dodgy data, then let me say, onboarding never stops. If you have a one-off job like that, then that is what we're here for. So raise a ticket, no extra charge probably, and we'll import it for you. So whether it's royalties or P&Ls that new clients want next, what we do tend to steer new clients towards at this early stage are some quick wins that start to, you know, take the chance to build trust in the team and a sort of sense of reassurance that the effort is worth it and immediately paying off. So let me set this video going, and it's a real-time video of how long it takes us to set up an all singing, all dancing, custom editable advanced information sheet for a client so that they can begin to see the benefit of one version of the truth within kind of moments of being onboarded. This is us in the back end using our internal toolkit. That's created the entire template there, and we're loading it up against a work that's got some data in it. And it's a really important moment because it gets the brain going. You know, I think that people don't dare to hope sometimes. How do you know what a system is going to do and not do? So they haven't dared to think about what might be possible. So we do this because in that sort of best tradition of show not tell, we'll set up this advanced information sheet and a catalogue template. But to be honest, this is good or better than the one which takes some poor sod 8 weeks every spring to do. To send the message that you can get Consonance to do some things of immense value that you've not really been given any reason to consider possible. So at this stage of the onboarding process, it's a real delightful thinking caps on moment. You know, if it can do this, what else can it do? So that's great to get to that stage, you know, within a very short period of time. And then it comes to training. And I must admit about training, I think, you know, in the sense of having training sessions, I do feel that training is, to be honest, completely ineffectual if you think that the point of a training session is to learn how to use a system. Because I've seen it time and again, after 5 minutes, your brain's full, it's all too abstract, someone else is clicking around and droning on, it's all out of context, and you know, your brain sort of starts ticking over all the things you want to be doing instead of sitting in a training session with someone droning on at you. But if you think that a training session is actually more of a sort of rite of passage, a kind of marker in time of, we've done it, we're going live with this is the start of the new era. You know, if you think that it's a kind of a time to connect with the real people behind the new computer system thing, so that you feel that you can talk to them as humans, if it's a mechanism to come together as a team, your end, to pursue this shared goal, if it's like this moment in time, then it's fabulously useful. But you just have to go into these things knowing what the aim of the exercise is. For actually learning how the system works, we have learned that the most effective way is to design the system properly, to make it consistent across all of its pages. We use the phrase here to make it internet normal. Like the hubris of developers who come up with some like fancy new way of presenting data. Just put it in a table, or put it in a drop down, or put it in a normal place where every other website on earth puts it. You get your ego out of the way of your users. I sometimes think that my ultimate dream is that users don't ever even think about Consonance as a piece of software. I would love it if it just recedes out of the way, gets into the background, you never think about it. All you think about is your pub dates or the relative prices of your paperbacks to the EPUBs, or what the numbers on the P&L are telling you. You know, let the software recede into the background so that your data can be doing the communication. That's the dream. But, you know, as well as good design, we have things set up so that we're always on standby to answer your questions as they come in. So we operate a very delightful support system, heavily redacted screenshot from here because the nature of support tickets are that they're all personal to individual clients. And the help desk is crewed mainly by Lisa and Dave, and sometimes me, and then calling in expert references from the wider team when warranted. We really like this setup because then it's the directors and the developers of the company that are the ones fielding the tickets. You know, we do not say yes to things unless we know how to write the code personally that enables that yes. We never say, oh, I don't know, but I'll go away and find out and come back to you, and then never come back to you, because we are the ones that we would go away and find out from. You know, there's no barrier and there's no set of baffles between the people writing the code and making the decisions and the paying customer. And we want all users to be able to access us in that way, not just like one appointed person in each publisher. And then as well as that, we've got inline docs and open documentation on our website and tooltips on every field, and not to mention this weekly live stream and shorter videos and in-app notifications and all that. So support in whichever flavour is helpful. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour through onboarding. So your data is in, value is getting noticed, staff are getting familiar with the system, we've set up all of your data feeds, and now it's on with maintaining your data and adding in new data as it becomes available. Consonance has got lots of templates and importers and well-designed web forms and lots of little features tucked everywhere, all designed with this intention of trying to melt into the background, like I say, so that when you're dealing with your data, you're thinking about that, not how to get some infernal system to update itself. So I'm not going to show you every last page in Consonance because we would be here for many possible days, maybe hours. But the gist is all of the forms are well labelled. They're accessible by keyboard and screen reader. They contain help text. They're tested for correctness behind the scenes to avoid frustration so that they just work. But a lot of effort has to go into things just simply working, doesn't it? So let's take a look at one small representative example. So this is the identifiers region on the metadata page. And we're only showing, when you come to this page, we're only showing the data that exists to avoid this sort of sense of overwhelm. I can see calls to action detailing fields that I can edit, and I can also filter to edit the page. If you're a user of the system and you don't know about that, go to the metadata page. Top left, there's the little box and your cursor is highlighted in it when the page loads. And if you type something like ident or DOI or something, then the whole page gets whittled down to just this one region. So it can be really helpful for just sort of keeping yourself focused, only being exposed to the stuff that you've kind of consented to be looking at that point. But when I click to edit, then, I have consented now. So I get access to all of the other fields that I could complete. And there are real ISBNs in here, so I've just blanked it out for manners. And then, and in fact, this screenshot, I've used that filter thing. Do you see I've whittled it down so that we're only seeing this one region on the page. And I'm also showing that there's fully searchable documentation, as well as this one-click access to us for tailored help if it's not immediately apparent how to do something. And then this page kind of quietly provides access to sort of useful expressions of the data. So rather than just a whole load of form fields, empty, not empty, whatever, it is thoughtfully designed so that whatever is relevant to this sort of data, we make the most of it. Again, by consent, not all on page loads. So, we're able to let the user choose to copy the ISBN 13, but not just straight from the form field. We're converting it into different formats that they might want to use. We're taking that ISBN 13 and expressing it in the form of a barcode. And I've absolutely tested these over the last 15 years, and you could print it on a poster and drape it over the size of Selfridges, and I'm pretty sure it would scan because it's a vector graphic. So using the data in the moment, but not flooding the senses with too much stuff. And Consonance is doing its bit to maintain your data behind the scenes as well. One example is in pricing. So in pricing, we keep prices across different currencies in sync, optionally if you don't want to add them in yourself, by actually making a call every day to a foreign exchange rate API, and we use that as the basis for periodic automatic recalculation of agency prices and other prices. And then on this screenshot we show a live comparison of stored prices across all of the currencies, and then that protects against everything really, from data entry errors and highlighting imbalances across currencies as well. You know, we're seeing here that the USD price is 418% more given that exchange rate than the UK price. And we're not saying you can't put it in like that, but we're using the interface to raise suggestions. So I could definitely go on about all of the different parts of Consonance that contain data, which is every part of it, but let's try and keep this snappy and move on to the last section, where we're going to talk about the sorts of benefits you can now get from your one version of the truth. So it's the payoff. And this is not going to be comprehensive, but as I've said before, we often find that people don't know what they don't know. And you might not have dared to hope that a metadata management system might be able to do these sorts of things. And so I just wanted to give you a flavour of some highlights, but it's really difficult to choose. One person's highlight is another person's low light. So drop me a line if you want to talk directly about other problems, as I do suspect we can help with those too. But in the interest of keeping things moving, let's see what I've chosen. So we've spoken a lot so far about getting data in and getting set up, but getting data out is probably even more important for the selling of the books, which is kind of a big point. So we saw information sheets, advanced information sheets getting set up earlier. Within that feature, there are all sorts of flavours. And it all comes down to how many works per page do you want to see? What do you want to happen when the content will flow outside of that allocated space? So we've got flyers, which are, maybe 16 works or products per page, and they would flow onto the next page. We've got multi-work PDFs where each work can only fill up one PDF page. We've got multi-work PDFs where the data will flow onto another PDF page, so you could have a 2-page AI. We've got 2-up catalogues, we've got 4-up catalogues, we've got all manner of different layouts. And there are over 1,000 data tags that you can use to set up these templates. So you can, it's like a mail merge really, isn't it? A posh modern mail merge, where you can design what the page is going to look like, give it some constraints, and then say, and I want the ISBN 13 with spaces here, and I want the GBP price with a £sign here, and I want it to say XVAT after it. You can mix and match your data into a design, and then once you've got the template, doesn't matter if you want to create 1 or 1,000, your work is done. It's a payoff. And another huge payoff of having this one version of the truth is to use it to produce the Excel sheets that every publisher in the land relies on. But now you can update them from one single source, rather than having kind of 6 absolutely crucial Excel spreadsheets that all have to be updated manually. The schedule and the forward list and the production grid and the acquisition grid and the marketing plan and everything. That one version of the truth drives all of these key touchstones within the organisation and within your workflow. So let's have a look at Data Studio for this, where you filter your records and then you switch between doing any of kind of hundreds of things with them. So here we are, we've set up our own report template, but now we can use them on large data sets. So you set up the template, you say, I want these columns, but the rows come from adding in filters to a search in Data Studio, which is, again, must be over 1,000 different elements that you can search and filter your data on. But you might not even have to set up your own templates, to be honest. We have written plenty of useful ones, like the lightning source spreadsheet of doom, which we'll have a little look at. does. I'm not sure how much of this video it goes on to the right for many columns worth of data. And we thought, gosh, well, everyone uses this. Let's set it up so that everyone can use it themselves. What are we doing now? We're looking at all of the other options, and we can see it, in a variety of different expressions. One version of the truth. We've gone from that spreadsheet for Lightning Source, but now we're using the same filters to look at workflow information because everything's connected. It's one database, one source. And now we're going over to marketing materials so that we can get those out. So, it's really mind-boggling actually when you start to really internalise the idea that, everything is in one place. So now I can jump from thinking about Lightning Source to thinking about the schedule and how all of my, my current month publications relate to each other. It's really cool. And getting data out of the system, I think, is a really important aspect to focus on, because whilst one version of the truth is amazing for keeping the workflow and the operations of the company snappy, the overriding aim of the exercise is to get your books in front of people. And so focusing on this sort of getting data out of the system is fruitful, I think. We're not going to have time to look at Onyx in too much detail today, but that is one of the main ways of getting your data to interact healthily with the rest of the supply chain. And there are plenty of other ways of getting data out as well, in formats that make sense for that moment. So royalty reports in a spreadsheet, royalty statements in a zipped up PDF file. We've got a GraphQL API, so that's like a programmatic way of getting that data out so that other computers can read it. We're talking about, your website feeds, that sort of thing, or other apps that you have built in-house where you need to extract your one version of the truth from Consonance and you want to do it in an efficient programmatic way. But Onyx is a really prime way of doing it. And on the screen here, we've got just a screenshot from sending out one particular Onyx transmission. And it's true to say that no two Onyx feeds are the same. So we set them up for you, accommodating all of the idiosyncrasies of every recipient, who are all different, and even different between clients as well. And then we keep the receipts of who got what. And that's a proper delightful payoff moment where you have the data and the tools at your disposal to be able to go back to your data aggregator and say, I know you said you didn't get the price update file last Friday, but I've got the receipts and you did. It gives us all agency and power and understanding and control and not being driven around the twist, which is a great benefit in this modern world. This slide that I've put together, I thought I'd highlight some of the other things that people talk about. It was one version of the truth was the key line that came up across the board when people start to think about a system like Consonance. But there's other clusterings of popular ideas, things like workflow and team management and project management and that sort of thing. It makes us think, it makes us reflect on the idea that it is such a shame to have to spend your time sending data between systems, which is what ends up happening if you're interested in project management and you try and adopt a tool like Asana or Trello or heaven forfend Jira or some other type of project management tool. It's a shame to have to spend energy on that. So we built workflow tools in Consonance, and we did that because then the to-do due dates can be relative to other meaningful dates in the system. So I'm just going to let this video play, and it's going to move around Consonance seeing to-dos in action. And this is a really great reason to have a system that contains the full span of your data. things like, you're adding delivery dates to the contract, and that's like a legal agreement that the author or agent has committed to. But instead of stuffing that Word document printed out in a drawer, keep those dates alive and use them as keys for to-do due dates. So then if a pub date changes, which it always does, of course, all my to-dos are going to update themselves automatically, and they're going to get flagged as overdue or blocking if necessary. And this is such a great way to start to smooth relations between departments. Keying against the handover from editorial to production means that we can really focus on that date without the heat of it, and make sure that everyone's clear who's doing what, that everyone has signed up to this date being the fixed date. And as an early warning indicator, everyone can see that this date is approaching. There's no conflict of data, there's no scope for vagueness or disagreement. Things can still get compressed, but you're having heads up all the time. You're able to outsource the burden of knowing when you're meant to do something to a sensible system, so that you've got a better chance of having enough energy in your week to do the actual job. And speaking of responsibility, there are a large number of features within Consonance which kind of circle around that roles-based sort of functionality and capability end of things. And it's all about giving people clarity about what their responsibilities are, but also being able to see what the responsibilities of others are. And you're able to refine as well. If you're thinking about implementing Consonance and you're thinking, well, it would be really silly if production had full unfettered access to the royalties section. You're absolutely able to refine what different users can do and see, which is a great kindness to them and to the business. It reduces sort of visual complexity even more, but it also means that at a strategic level you can decide what data is appropriate to be shared across the team. So that's something that would come up in the onboarding conversations, to really understand your particular setup and how that should be implemented. And we have the immense flexibility to do that. There's an awful lot, actually. There's an awful lot of client-specific code within Consonance, which is funny for a sort of off-the-shelf system. But it means that we can accommodate your required flexibilities and particular ways of doing things and particular view of the world and language to an extent. But we also maintain one magnificent monolithic code base, which makes it more straightforward for us to maintain. And more robust and reliable and tested. It's quite hard to choose what else to highlight, really. So I think I'll just keep it pithy. We'll look at some of these things. So P&Ls, everyone says they love them. Everyone abuses them. I often look at the P&Ls that come out and I think, yes, of course you're going to sell 10,000 euros worth of French rights, which miraculously bumps the margin contribution number just up to 43%, which is the sign-off level, of course. But, you can certainly play the acquisitions meeting game in Consonance to your heart's content, if you so desire. We've got single or multi-work plans, so you can do it at the title level, as they say, the work level, or you can do it for a range of products on that work, or just one product on the work, or any sort of mishmash of the two. You can do a series level P&L, for instance, which would be quite good fun, or a season P&L. What else have we got? We've got document templates. This is a really exciting feature and very powerful in terms of being able to exploit your one version of the truth, because this gives you precision control. This allows you to write your exact title verso page, for instance. Again, we're thinking about it's vaguely like a mail merge. You have your very personal to you layouts, templates, context, and then you insert data in a particular way. And it's not just, a data tag that you might want to insert. We've got loops, we've got conditional statements, we've got everything, in fact, that if you've ever used Shopify are the company behind a lot of customer-facing websites. They invented a templating language called Liquid, and we're using exactly that templating language, Liquid, within Consonance, so that you can set up designed or plain text templates and use the data from within your one version of the truth. Hugely powerful, very exciting. But just having lists in place is transformative in itself. I mean, it's hardly revolutionary, but it's still transformative. So, rights don't have to maintain their own list. Production doesn't have to maintain their own list. Imagine being a rights person, and this is a video actually. Yeah, imagine being a rights person and being able to run a search of which products have got a production file uploaded, because you need to be able to send them out as reading copies. So you're always waiting, is the PDF ready yet? Is the PDF ready? Well, you can run that own search, and then you can switch views, see the details of what has been uploaded already, refine it down to only PDFs or whichever format you want, get the file detail right there. I mean, I have seen that process take a week, and that little video there, this is the payoff. When you've got all of your data in one place, these sorts of things are possible. Having everyone seeing the same schedule, but being able to filter it down to only the bits they're interested in. Best of both worlds. We have this vast store of all of the information, and we can slice and dice it. This is the payoff, one version of the truth. So I'm going to start be a bit pressed for time soon, because rather ridiculously I'm going off for a horse riding lesson, because the schedule got all messed up, and we normally go on a Saturday, but today it's on a Thursday afternoon. So whilst there's loads more to say, the horses are calling, so hopefully you have got a gist of how much of a payoff Consonance gives you, and how much of your team's energy could be redirected into much more imaginative, useful directions. I mean, we've not touched on, completely standard yet awesome features like, paying royalties monthly, which we've supported for decades, or bulk order management in production, or permissions management. We've only looked a little bit at Onyx and contact management, and things like, real hard-earned features that solve such well-known yet subtle problems, like supplier-specific marketing pub dates for the same ISBN 13. You might have exactly the same product, same ISBN 13, published in the UK, published in the US, on different dates. I'm not sure that any system I've ever come across actually solves that problem, but we've had it solved for years and years. Or data feeds to websites, or I've not looked at automatically extracting the table of contents from your content files, so you get all of that rich metadata of the table of contents stuffed with keywords, without having to lift you do have to lift one finger, and that's it. Any number of features that I have not talked about that deserve at least an hour's celebration, but hopefully this gives you a flavour at least. So I would say for next steps, I mentioned how quick it is to get data in from an Onyx file. So if you are considering systems at the moment, with absolutely no obligation, email us over your Onyx file, and we'll set it up in a demo account for you, and you can have a leisurely click around for yourself in a system that comes basically pre-implemented. So then you can focus on the important people-related side of a shift like this, and understanding some process improvements and auditing your data in a way that you've not been able to do possibly before. Even if it's a free way to audit your data and surface errors and issues, that's if you might have a hunch that your current system isn't helping you to identify oddities. So nothing to lose. There's my email on the slide if you want to drop me a line. So that was our special 50th birthday live stream, oriented a little bit more towards what people think about when they might be considering a system. But for our existing clients and for new clients as well, I just wanted to revisit that idea that you've got this one version of the truth, and it is relevant and exciting for all departments, all users across the company. So it's often just worth thinking, what else could I be using Consonance for? I've got all of this data in one place. This is compelling and might save people time. So we must always keep our thinking caps on. If you'd like to talk about this one-to-one, I am always available for chats. We had fibre installed a couple of years ago into our remote rural location up here in Scotland, and it's the fastest internet connection I have ever known in all my days, so no impediment to lovely long chats with video streaming and so forth. It would be great to hear from you. Drop me a line, and see you for Livestream number 51. I have to see if we're going to go straight from celebrating Livestream 50 to celebrating Livestream 52, which would be a year. I think that's enough celebration. Back to normal next week. But yeah, thanks for listening.